Hello friends, today we're diving into the topic of what to know before buying a short-term rental property. What should you know before buying a short-term rental property? Is there a blueprint that can save time and money and set you on the road to success right from the get-go? There absolutely is, and throughout this video, I'm going to reveal what I did to buy 6 short-term rentals in a period of 14 months and share with you my secrets. Before you purchase anything, you need to have a solid idea of what you should know. And this is even more important when it comes to short-term rentals. Short-term rentals are a fairly new real estate investment strategy that are gaining a lot of traction, becoming really popular. And understanding what to know beforehand can make or break your investment. Well, I've got good news because we're gonna dive into that topic and I'll break down exactly what to look for when buying a short-term rental. First, I'll go through what data that needs to be researched that'll give you a solid foundation. Second, I'll share with you where to find the data. And finally, I'll help you make sense of that data and give you a checklist that I've used for all my short-term rental properties. If you're ready, let's go. So what's the data that you need when you're considering to buy a short-term rental property? Well, number one, it has to be area. In real estate, they say the 3 most important things are location, location, location. So area is vitally important to understand where to buy. Now, if we're looking for short-term rentals, obviously we're looking for people that are traveling, vacationing, and so we need to look at the tourism data in order to see, do the numbers, do the annual visitors going to that area or close to that area support you in owning a short-term rental, meaning that are people going to stay at your short-term rental enough to make it worthwhile as a positive, lucrative investment? And talking about tourism, the number that I really like to look at is annual visitors. You can easily do that just typing in Google, what are the annual visitors to this area? And many sites that promote that will have that in their tourism numbers. You know, some people will skip this, but it reminds me of people that go and they buy a stock just based off a friend's recommendation. They might think, oh my gosh, my friend said I need to buy a property here because it's booming. There's been many times that I've searched for best places to buy a property and I see a place on that, but I never see that place on there again on any publications. So there's definitely areas that are booming, but sometimes those can be a one-hit wonder. And it's actually pretty interesting. When you start looking into the tourism numbers, sometimes the data gets skewed or our perception of the data gets skewed. Because I've asked people many times, what national park in all the United States gets the most visitors? And if I ask you that question, I'd say 90% of people tell me Yellowstone or Yosemite, which are awesome areas, right, to visit. However, the place that gets the most visitors year in and year out and has for many years is the Smoky Mountains National Park. They get over 12 million visitors every single year and have for decades. That's why Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, Bryson City, North Carolina, some of those areas that are surrounding the national parks have really started to boom with short-term rentals. Now with that booming becomes some saturation, but I know a lot of people that are still doing very well in those areas even though it's very saturated. Obviously Smoky Mountains is big. Now Yellowstone and Yosemite each get about 3.5 million every single year, but they're not even in the top 5 because you have the Grand Canyon, Zions, and a few others that are actually outpacing them as far as visitors. But it doesn't mean they're still not good areas. But understanding that data is really important because sometimes people just skip over that. However, those are the big numbers, but there might be some pockets and some areas that definitely attract a lot of visitors. So I like to do a deeper dive into the areas by a Google search of where are the best areas to buy short-term rentals. And a lot of times some of those publications will do a lot of the work for you, giving you some of those numbers that we just researched. And once I have those, I start comparing it to the data that I actually did on those areas. So let's say that I had a handful of areas that are supported by the tourism numbers, and I've got a handful of areas that pop up on the Google search of where are the best places to own a short-term rental. All of a sudden, I have some areas that I can do a deeper dive into finding that out. And that next phase involves the website called airdna.co. AirDNA is a master tool for giving you additional insights onto the numbers, right? Because obviously, if you're going to buy a short-term rental, you're buying it to make the numbers work. You want somebody else staying in your property, paying you to pay your mortgage, your expenses, all while you make some money from that, and your asset grows in appreciation. And AirDNA is going to look at a handful of things. 3 things that I really like to look at with AirDNA, and there's paid versions that'll give you a ton more information, but the free version will give you these 3 things. Number 1, average nightly rate, how much people are paying every night to stay at a property in that area on average. 2, occupancy rate, how often are the average properties occupied annually in that area, and annual revenue. What is the annual revenue that people see from that area, typically if they own an average short-term rental? So those 3 data points are also very important. Also, currently, AirDNA just came out in the last little bit with an AI score of a market score for the area. Meaning it takes all the data that it has and it assigns a score on a scale of 1 to 100. And based on that, you'll have a really good idea if it's a good area or not. For example, Savannah, Georgia, score 99, right? Blue Ridge, Georgia, 50, right? So there's different areas with different scores from AirDNA that they compiled all that data. However, one thing that doesn't take into consideration is some of the homes that are second homes that are just rented out occasionally, but the owners will stay there quite a bit of time. So anyway, it might look like a very low occupancy rate when it's higher on the dates that are available. You know, like I said, AirDNA is awesome. One other thing I will do on AirDNA after I have that data is I might go click on some of the Airbnb or Vrbo listings and just get an idea of what their calendars look like during some of the best months, so I have an idea if it really is being booked by customers and what to see there. Once I have all that data, right, I've looked at the tourism numbers, the annual visitors, I've Google searched the top areas to own a short-term rental. Now I've done the AirDNA research. The next thing I look at is a handful of items that are really important to narrow down your search when looking to buy a short-term rental. The first thing is regulations. Research the area, the city, the county, the state, the neighborhood, municipalities. See if there's regulations that restrict or prohibit short-term rentals in the area. Second thing, can you afford the area? If you've got a budget of $500,000 to $600,000 and everything's over $1 million, move on to the next area, right? So affordability is one. Third thing, active listings. When you're looking at that area, does it currently have Airbnbs available? Are they doing well? Are they booked up? You know, one interesting thing, I was just doing some research on Acadia National Park in Maine, and as I looked at that, I found a news report that just came out that said, can these cities sustain the growth of all the visitors that are visiting Acadia National Park? It had gone up to like 3.5 million visitors, which was pretty significant, and a lot of these small towns are having a difficult time maintaining that. But their overall thesis was that they could sustain it, that they were growing with the tourism, with all the money coming into those areas. And one thing I looked at, I started looking at Airbnbs that were available in that area. You will see people renting out just a room, one room for $250, $300 a night. So that tells me there's opportunity for short-term rentals. However, do the regulations prohibit some of that up there? Is that why they're so expensive, because they're just renting out a room? They can't rent out the whole house? Or the prices are so high because there's only a limited number of short-term rentals? But anyway, that's an example of understanding what active listings and if there's opportunities in an area. The fourth thing is looking at optimal size in the area. Some places you're going to want to find something with a certain bed and bath count. And when I say optimal size, that's what I mean. How many beds, how many baths are perfect for the typical guest profile that is staying in that area, right? For example, our home in Broken Bow, Oklahoma is a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, but it's a 1,000-square-foot home with a hot tub, fireplace inside and outside. There's a barbecue pit. There's some games. It's in the trees. It's surrounded by trees. It is a destination for couples looking to get away for a few nights, 2, 3, 4 nights, away from the hustle and bustle of Dallas, Fort Worth, Tulsa, Oklahoma City, or Little Rock, Arkansas. They want to get away, head up to the mountains, the trees, the lake, and get away. So anyway, a 1-bedroom, 1-bath is a great count because it fits the guest profile. Other areas might be a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, like in our Blue Ridge, Georgia home. So that's typical for a family that's looking to get away. Having 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms is great. So understanding optimal bed and bath count is also vitally important. And the last thing is a quick financial overview, right? Now, if you can do a deep dive, you can get a short-term rental calculator and you get all the information on utilities, expenses every single year. And there's some expenses you might not even factor in, like the fees the Airbnb charges you, the taxes, hotel tax, maintenance fees, capital expenditures. These are a lot of things you'll find in a short-term rental calculator. If you can get your hands on one of those and put that data in, that's vitally important. But here's a quick snapshot on what I look on every short-term rental or vacation rental that I look at, and it's really quick and easy. If annual rents are at least 10% of the purchase price, it's an okay deal. Meaning you have a property for $500,000 and it brings in $50,000 a year, it's worth looking deeper into that property, right? Can you get a lower price? Can you increase the occupancy? Can you get more people to stay there? Can you get up to 12, 13%? Can you raise the revenue? The next series down is if annual rents are 15% of the purchase price, that's a good deal, right? That's one that I would consider pulling the trigger on if everything else matched up. Meaning a $500,000 property that's kicking off $75,000 in annual rents. And ultimately, the last one, if you have a property that is kicking out 20%, or if the annual revenue is 20% or more of the purchase price, that is a do not pass up deal. So if you have a $500,000 property that is kicking off $100,000 or more in revenue, I would not pass that deal up. Those are hard to come by. Are they out there? Absolutely. And if you can do the research to find them, they are there. there. It's just doing about the research and finding it. So that's just a general rule of thumb that I use that gives me the ability to quickly say, okay, yes, let's investigate this further, or no, I'm going to move on to the next one. But obviously, as I mentioned, having a short-term rental calculator is really important. So these are some things that I've found that make a world of difference when I'm looking into a short-term rental property or what to know before I buy one. I'd be interested in what you found is very helpful for you. So please comment below. I'd love to engage in a dialogue. And I've actually got a special gift for you. I have a short-term rental calculator that I'll give to you for free. All you got to do is click on the link below, aaronsfreetraining.com. It gives you all the information. You put in all the data and it spits out to you whether it's a good deal or not. It gives you the cash-on-cash return and it lets you know what the annual rents are as a percentage of purchase price just by putting that data in there. Anyways, thanks for stopping by. Have an amazing day.